This is a harder topic for me to do because I'm usually so silly. So please get your dose of vampire VTuber silliness by looking at my hands. Hello. Fingies. So I'm sorry that the visual tone doesn't quite match the topic tone. Now, I don't have a Warhammer or Wargames addiction, because even though I have a lot, it doesn't adversely impact me. My health or money hasn't suffered. I have some disposable income that I don't spend on staying alive, and I spend some of that on Warhammer. My biggest problem is lack of space. So I have a lot of armies. You know I have Sisters of Battle. You know I have Genestealer Cult. I also have Space Marines, Imperial Fists, that I've been collecting since the 90s, and I started with them being yellow, so they're gonna stay yellow. And all the new ones have to be yellow, and yellow is a terrible colour to paint, but that's a decision I made. I also got Chaos Space Marines, just to be completely different, and have probably more of them than any other faction. I have Dark Eldar, hence the recent Dark Eldar videos, and I have Eldari to go with them. And then I can have Ynnari if I wish, and that looks like it's going to be the meta. I bought a bunch of Necrons that are pre-painted, but that doesn't really feel like my army, just they're an army that I can lend out to other people. And I have Imperial Guard, Praetorian Imperial Guard, and it's an entirely infantry army, and every one of them is probably the most expensive you can get as an Imperial Guard model. And you need a lot of Imperial Guard models. And I also have Vampire Counts, of course. And I have Skaven, because I love the little rat men that might blow themselves up. It's always funny for my opponent. And I have Dark Elves. That's the Warhammer Fantasy Dark Elves. I guess you could call it Cities of Sigmar, but it's not really, because it's entirely Dark Elves. And then on top of all of them, I got some Deathwatch. And I don't quite know why. I just saw that, oh, I have a Kill Team Cassius because they came in the Overkill game, which gave me Genestealer Cult, and that was the earliest way to get Genestealer Cult models, besides, you know, the ones from 2nd edition. And now that in 10th edition you can have Deathwatch in a regular Space Marine army, I thought, why not? And I like the look of the Mark 6 armor, so I bought some Mark 6 armor, Deathwatch veterans, and I'm building up a Deathwatch army. I thought I'll get just enough to have a lore-accurate watch company, then just enough to make 1,000 points, and now I'm on, oh, maybe I'll get just enough to get 1,500 points, and then just enough to match the new 1,500 points because of the points change. Now this is not a problem. I just think it's like a commitment I have to continually get more. This isn't even a pile of shame. There's no unpainted models. Pretty much all of them are built and done. I just always felt like I needed to have more. The next project. Ideally, what I would have done is have 1 or 2 armies with enough models to field various lists. So like 2,500 points, and then the army is done, and I leave it, and there's nothing else there. Now, before we talk about addiction to Warhammer, which I don't have, there are good sides to having the models and playing Warhammer that we should look at before we go down the bad side. Painting can be very relaxing. When I was denied a promotion, or when I was made redundant, painting was a much better way to calm down than playing video games and shooting a giant ant that looked weirdly like my manager. When you're painting and building models, you create something, and that is potentially a forever something. That is why people don't like it when there are no rules for their models anymore. And when you're playing Warhammer, you get outside, you meet people, you can make friends, you get out of the house. And there are people from across the world who enjoy chatting in my Discord group, thanks to Wargames. And me. Mostly me. So I am okay. But a student in Carlisle is not. In January 2024, they were in court with 9 counts of theft of models from a Warhammer store as they had taken £6,523 worth of models in just over 6 weeks. It was described as an addiction. Now, we've all thought about camping the bins outside the Games Workshop to get models from boxes that are removed from the shelves to make way for the new stock. Right? Okay, but it becomes an addiction, by general definitions, when it is a recurring behaviour that you can't stop. When you've tried to stop, you found that you couldn't change your own behaviour, and you become irritable and anxious when trying to cut down or stop the behaviour. In this case, buying Warhammer, And you buy Warhammer to escape from other feelings like guilt, helplessness, depression, not because the hobby alone gives you joy. The point being, if you weren't having a depressive episode, you wouldn't have bought that Great Unclean one. And you may also find that you have to spend increasing amounts of money and more time for the game to be enjoyable. Then you lie to your family, your friends, people who are trying to help you. You lie about how much money and time you spend. You do a crime to get money or models for the hobby. So back to Carlisle. And if you think Carlisle is in Wales, you are confusing it with Cardiff. So for the student, this certainly sounds like addictive behaviour. The student wasn't the only one to steal. They had an accomplice who wanted the models but needed money more urgently for food. So the expensive models were quite a pull against the means to be alive. The Carlisle student knew it was wrong to steal. When they'd stolen, they wanted to take the models back, but knew that that would land them in trouble. He was in financial difficulties, but he had to get the plastic crack. He was stealing the models when he was going through a bad patch with his PTSD. And most of the models were recovered, as in, they were still in the box, in the shrink wrap. Piles of grey. And I'm assuming that anything built or painted would not be considered a recoverable good. So this is when it's a problem. Having the hobby that you spend time on and enjoy regularly is good. Buying models you know you will probably never build or play with, hiding how much you spend on the models, and stealing models you don't build to distract from your poor health, that is bad. So anything can be addictive. But what makes Warhammer so addictive? It is designed to keep selling you products. You sell a lot of stuff to the same person. So what is your next army? Oh, now is the best time to get into Tyranids. And then you always need the add-ons. Paint, the terrain, more models, dice, tape measures, all of the things that Games Workshop sells. And the big thing is, Games Workshop's rules keep changing. You can't beat it the same way you can beat a computer game. There are always more armies, there are more opponents, more variations of lists, more armies and different armies to play against. The points and the rules changing so often means that it always becomes a new game. You can never be done. There is no 100% completion. Not an inbuilt one, you have to make your own. Like, get a Deathwatch army, have a full watch company, then have 1,000 points, then have 1,500 points. And much like with drugs, in Warhammer, the first taste is free. So we have a thing called the Model of the Month. You go into a Games Workshop store, you get a free model. You can't get a squad for free, but one model for a game, which is built around squad level combat within an army, that means that you are immediately lacking models. You've got one model, it's cool to have that model, now you need more models. And Games Workshop is always bringing out new things, always announcing new things. Here's a thing at LVO. Wherever there's a big event, then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, Warhammer products. Not released immediately, but there's going to be more, there's always more, constantly updating. And this hobby has a lot of breadth. It is always there. So you can be collecting and assembling and kit bashing and painting, planning army lists on the app. Then you pick up a novel and you read about the lore in the novel. Then you're playing a PC game like Warhammer Total War, and going back a bit further, Dawn of War, and even further back, Chaos Gate. You can hate Games Workshop while loving most of their models. And then you're discussing it all online and watching YouTube videos about it. And this is all to push product. Products that are addictive are gonna sell more. Companies want people to be addicted, or to use a corporate term, invested in their product line. So what can we do to make it less problematically addictive? We can't make Games Workshop sell the models at a cheaper price. Doesn't matter how many of us individually say we're going to quit Warhammer, there's always more people who will just buy more. What we can do is buy the models cheaper. I have affiliate links to get the models cheaper, but with the tone of this video, it doesn't seem quite right to shill for them. That will stop it being as big a financial burden. Be honest with your loved ones about how much the models cost. Sure, you want the Warcry vampire set. I want it so bad. But telling someone you love how much it honestly costs and seeing their reaction can be a good way of getting a reality check on how much you are spending on a few models when you don't even play Warcry. You can use the time between the announcement and when the models come out to compare how you feel about them. Oh look, new Crude Hounds. They are not out yet. But when they are out, compare your reaction to seeing them online, and if your reaction then to seeing them on the shelves is, oh yeah, I like the look of them, but that's it. If you've just completely forgotten about them in the time between them being announced and seeing them, don't buy them. If you've been waiting for them, checking when you can get them, you know when you will paint them and enjoy them, then I would still go for it. When work was hard one year, we'll say 8th edition, I saw the Rogue Trader kill team with Spaceship and Galapox infected. I would stare at that picture and feel better, and I wanted that set. I didn't buy something else to cope. I liked it, I wanted it, and even when it was out, I waited a little bit and then got it at a discount price. And I'm glad I got it even though I didn't paint all of it right away. That's the thing. Don't buy boxes for later. Maybe eventually you will want a Genestealer Cult army. Let's just see if they keep being supported in rules. Now sure, at the moment the Genestealer Cult Combat Patrol might be really good value compared to all the others. But when the Hachette Combat Patrol magazine gets up and running properly, having just finished its trial run of 4 issues in a small part of the UK, then you can get the models cheaply in the future. If you buy for later, it will just sit there, and one day you'll open your cupboard and it will all fall out and crush you to death. But buying models that you don't have time to build and play with can be really bad. I know that you want to feel like you still have a connection to the hobby you enjoyed when you were younger. That is why we watch YouTube videos about it when we're not playing, just to keep up with the game. Oh yes, and if you are addicted, telling people close to you about it, seeking professional help, that is going to be better than expecting a Vtuber to fix your problems. I can't. I barely have functioning hands. I like having hands. I hope that doesn't become a weirdly prophetic statement. So those are the best tips I can give. If you can think of one, comment section, please. Come on, hand, point. There we go. I'm kind of pointing. Oh, it looks weird. It looks weird. And I'm sure that we can be nicer than the comment section of the original article where I found out about the theft, which is linked in the description. I mean, even though it hasn't really come out as grim content, this sort of hard look at the hobby isn't something I do. And since I don't do it very often, don't subscribe to me and don't give me tip money at the Ko-Fi link in the description for this video because I don't plan on doing more. What you should do is check out the channels Northern Exile and Discourse Minis, who do this sort of content more often. My darlings and viewers, let's moderate our purchasing of Warhammer. Have a great day.